how's it going, guys? My name is Zach with the Movie Castle, and today we're going to be taking a look at Cold Prey 2. This is from 2008. This time around, we're directed by Mats Stenberg, and we star, returning from the last movie, Ingrid Bolso Berdal. We also have a sort of second protagonist character this time around, Marthe, Snorresdotter Rovick, and we also have Johanna Morck in this movie. If you guys saw Troll Hunter, I believe she's the girl from Troll Hunter. Cool to see her in another movie. If you guys haven't seen Troll Hunter, it's a found footage kind of goofy creature feature, and I thought it was pretty fun. Anyway, this movie, we have the protagonist from the first recovering in a hospital right after the events of the first movie, where of course the hospital is under attack from the killer from the first movie. If you guys think that sounds kind of familiar, yeah, it's the basic skeleton of Halloween 2. Now that being said, other than the generic plot synopsis, it's not terribly similar, but it is something you're going to notice going into this movie, and it all depends on, how well you can accept that. It's really not too bad, but it is something you're gonna notice. Other than that, though, it is definitely a step in the right direction. It's still not a perfect slasher by any means, but it is significantly better than the first. The first one had kind of cheesy stock characters. It went way too slow, and the kills weren't that great. Here, the characters are a little more developed. Instead of just dumb partying teens, we get police officers, doctors, and nurses, and they all have kind of interesting relationships between them, and they're a little more thought out. Again, not the best thing ever, but it's a step in the right direction. The plot does get moving a little faster, and the kills in this hospital are better. Now, there's no Tom Savini kills or anything, nothing to really write home about, but they are better than they were in the last one. A little bit more gore, a little bit more thought going into them, and what really does stand this out is a pretty good climax. Once you get where everybody knows what's up, we're running around the hospital, pretty good sequences there, and the last couple sequences in this movie are pretty good. So, definitely a step in the right direction. Not perfect by any means, but better than the first one. I mean, even the first one was like this butt-ugly gray color. Here, the color's still too dull, but I can see what's going on a whole lot better. And, I actually can see this nice, creepy hospital. It's definitely going in the right direction. I wish I could watch Cold Prey 3, but never got a DVD release in America, so I'll have to wait till it pops up streaming somewhere, and if you guys happen to see it somewhere, definitely let me know, because the last one was okay, this one is a little bit better, and I really am curious where the prequel goes, but as of now, can't watch it, so yay. Anyway, let's talk a bit about the plot. Not going to do any major spoilers, but I do want to take a moment to break down and analyze this movie, so I'll talk a little bit more in depth about a few plot points, but I don't have to go to the end to do that. Anyway, we open up with the officers getting a call that there's a car that's been abandoned for a few days, better go check it out, and that of course is where they're going to find the protagonist stumbling through the snow and kind of out of it. They'll take her back to the hospital, get her story, and find out about the killer. Now, in this hospital, the idea is it's going to be shut down in a little bit, kind of Assault on Precinct 13-esque. And with it being mainly empty, there's not too many characters, and it's a good sort of dreary atmosphere. And the characters here are kind of interesting. the guy that found her is actually dating this doctor character, and she is kind of like your main lead. Sadly, a lot like Halloween 2, the protagonist from the first film is going to be out of it for a while, either drugged or restrained, and this new doctor is like lead 2. And she, because her hospital is closing, found a new job at another hospital, and it's sadly a little bit far away, and that's going to be like, with her boyfriend, what do I do now? I guess I have to move if I want to still be with you, or we have to do this long distance. So there is a bit of drama there. We also get this head doctor who's a little gruffer and a little more serious, and you can tell there's something up with him, but we don't know what right off the bat. We also get this young nurse and this blonde cop character, and they're falling in love with each other, and I do like, you'd expect this young cop to be like a jerk or something, but he's actually really shy, and it's a really sweet romance that definitely going to work out perfectly in a horror movie. But we also get the head of the cops, and he's doing some good investigation, and he'll bring us quite a bit of lore. Like that room that was burnt down in the hospital, he's gonna figure out what that's about. I mean, they made such a big deal out of it in part 1. I'm glad there's some sort of payoff, even if it's not till the next movie. It's not the biggest thing ever. Basically, one of the searchers was in there supposedly by himself, and he got the room set on fire, and he doesn't know how it happened. We, of course, know it's the killer trying to get him, but this searcher character, he actually was a doctor back in the day, and he knows a little bit about the missing boy, and it actually has a few interesting revelations here, so I do like a little bit more lore. One thing that works out really good with this movie is they do get a lot back from the first. Once she tells her story, they actually do go back to the hotel a little bit, which I thought was pretty cool. But also they have to go get the bodies. And I do like they actually brought back the actors from the first movie just to play dead bodies here. And we get a good scene where they go and they let her mourn and, kind of, soak in some emotion from part 1. And they do also go farther down the crevice and find more bodies, which, again, watching the first movie, I thought it was super lame to only see the 5 down there at the bottom. I'm like, this should have been a big, creepy pile of bodies, but okay, they're just farther down the ridge, like he's going around making a line out of them, I guess. Should have been a big corpse pile, but whatever. They get the bodies out, and the thing that gets me with this movie that I think is one of the bigger problems is for the first, I'd say the first solid act, there's not really much tension because it's basically like a prolonged epilogue to a slasher movie. Yep, there's a slasher, there's going to be a whole bunch of body retrieval and medical work, and the cops are going to be looking into stuff. It's interesting because you don't usually see this much after a horror movie, but note that there's no immediate threat. Like, when they pulled the killer's body out, if they just showed his fingers twitch to tell the audience that he was gonna come, because, like, just looking at the movie as it's presented, it's a scary atmosphere, but there's no threat to back up this atmosphere, and we, because we're watching a horror movie, know the killer's gonna get up again, but if we didn't know that just from context clues, there's really nothing scary happening in the first act. But of course the killer does get up. There's a fun sequence where the nurse is trying to get the clothes off of him so she can examine the corpse, and the shirt is just fused to his body. Yeah, I knew a few people like that back in college. But yeah, she tries to get it off and he starts to twitch, and she calls the other doctors, and of course the final girl is going to be there, see this, and is like, no, don't bring him back, darn Hippocratic oath. But they of course restrain her, and they restrain the killer too. They put one handcuff on the killer. Meanwhile, the final girl, they'll do both hands and feet. Gotta get that final girl down, but the killer, just one handcuff will do. But anyway, they do bring him back, and we know that he's not just gonna sit there, right? He's, of course, going to get up, go on his killing spree, and wreak havoc in this hospital. It's, like I said, a little bit better of a set. There's more rooms to explore, more possibilities that he could be hiding anywhere. It's just a bigger, more wide open maze than the first one. And it does, like I say, have a few pretty good sequences. There are, I forgot to mention them when I talked about the characters earlier, which probably says something about them. But there's a little kid and an old woman in this movie, and they're both kind of MacGuffins, like, don't let the killer get them, and they'll just wander around the hotel. The kid has a broken arm, and the doctor's like, oh, I said he could go home. What's he still doing here? And the other one was like, oh, his mom said she can't get him and just to leave him in the hospital an extra night. That wouldn't happen in America. No one's got an extra $5,000 just lying around for a free night in the hospital, but kid's fine, doctor's gotta play babysitter to him. Okay, whatever. But of course, like I said, the main girl is a little bit restrained for most of this movie, either on drugs or tied up, and she does have, especially towards the end, she gets a few good moments, yet it's not as bad as Laurie Strode in Part 2, but we do have that second lead, and I think the second lead does a good job. It is kind of a weird character plot balance to have essentially two leads, but you do need someone that doesn't know as much of what's going on. But once the movie heats up, again, that first act, there's nothing really to back up the tension. It starts to get going in the second, and then that third act is actually pretty good. Especially, I think, the last two sequences in this movie are pretty solid, and especially when we get the final girl from the first, her real time to shine. And I think it does end up going somewhere pretty well. Like I said, not the biggest and best thing ever, but compared to Part 1, it definitely a step up, and I think it has, some real moments here. So I can definitely recommend it. I think it is pretty cool. I do wish it got a little better, because I think as it stands now, it's a pretty good slasher, but if it was just a little better, I think could have been a real gem. But anyway, I can definitely recommend it. If you saw the first one and thought it was okay, it definitely stick around for Part 2. It does heat up there. Anyway, to everyone who's watched so far, thank you for watching. To everyone who's liked and subscribed, thank you. You really are helping the channel out. I'll leave a relevant playlist on the bottom. This will probably be my slasher movies playlist. You can see my review for the first one there. I've also talked about Halloween 2, that's relevant to this one, and quite a few others. I think there's over 100 videos in here, so if you really want to dig down, that's there. Anyway, have a good day. I'll see you guys again very, very soon. Relevant playlist on the bottom. Have a good day now.